Now we see how the forms are supposed to account for metaphysics, for truth, for reality, because the reality is in the forms, and truth becomes, when you make statements, something is a X is an F. That's in case X resemble. It's true just in case X resembles the form Fness. But how do we know these forms? Do you guys remember seeing them? It's going to be a familiar story if you think back to the Meno. There's a distinction made between what's sometimes called, actually this phrase was coined by a British philosopher of the last century, a very great philosopher named Bertrand Russell. He talked about the difference between knowledge by acquaintance and knowledge by description. Knowledge by description is propositional knowledge, what we've been talking about a lot, knowing that such and such is the case, knowing certain facts. But in addition to which, you also know people. That is, you know me, you know your classmates, you know other people around. And it's a distinction between knowing who and knowing that. Now, how do you know the forms? You know it by acquaintance. You are acquainted with the forms. And how your knowledge, where is it coming back? You're bringing it back. How are you doing that? Through memory. When were you acquainted with the forms? Well, it goes back to that theory that we talked about earlier this semester about resurrection. Resurrection of the soul, that you had a previous life. And when the soul was disembodied, it was hanging out with the forms in Platonic heaven somewhere. Because it's hard to figure out where these forms are, because remember, they're not physical, they don't take up any space. So they're somewhere, and we say up. Up is probably wrong to say, because up is an actual physical direction. And the other thing that Plato tells, that's how we know them. We knew them, and somehow when we were being born, we lost it again. And now we have to recall them. We're remembering them. And there's also a hierarchy of forms. Some are more perfect than others. The form of the good is the highest. The good being the ultimate goal. What is the good in itself? The things that everything seeks to be. The perfection. Then a little bit below that we have justice, beauty, and other moral forms. They're just a little bit lower. And below that we get properties of objects, being red, being blue, all of these weird things. So there's a hierarchy. Some forms are better, so to speak, more real than other forms.